Leader of the opposition and the opposition spokesman on finance disingenuously accused the government of increasing taxes on the people of Jamaica. In this budget presentation, well, in the last budget presentation, the leader of the opposition said, since the JLP government came into office, they have more than doubled the annual tax take, increasing it by a massive $190,000 per person. Yet, in his recent budget presentation this year, the leader of the opposition and the opposition spokesman on finance both claim that the improved performance of tax revenue is due to the tax reform work of the PNP. So we need to ask ourselves, is it the PNP that is responsible for Jamaicans paying more taxes? In the 2023 budget, the leader of the opposition complained that the government was moving too fast to reduce debt. He advocated that we abandon the fiscal responsible path, use $40 billion, in other words, go and party with the rent money, money that we're supposed to use for debt repayment, to spend on temporary relief. In this budget, when he sees the amazing benefit of reducing the debt to 68% and the amazing fiscal space that is created for us to actually now sustainably deal with the relief effort, he now comes claiming that the reduction in debt is due to the PNP's faithfulness to fiscal prudence. This reminds me of the classic tale of what we in Jamaica sometimes regretfully call Butler's father, who caused the mother so much pain and then abandons the child. But when the child grows up to be successful, out of the blue they turn up to claim paternity and associate with success. This leader of the opposition is a man of convenience, flip-flopping between prudence and popularity when it suits him. 1 minute he disowns the child of fiscal discipline, and then the next he claims the child of fiscal discipline. The mother remembers the pain of FinSac and the high interest rate policy, the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich, and she knows that she cannot trust this worthless man. So the DNA test was done. The DNA test was done. The results are in. When it comes to 15-year-old fiscal discipline, PNP, you are not the father. Yes, your name call, but it is another goaling that is the father. Madam Speaker, jokes aside, this is the first time our debt to GDP ratio is below pre-FinSac levels of the mid-1990s. It has therefore taken us 30 years to undo the damage of the self-inflicted blow of the PNP's economic mismanagement of the 90s. 30 years.
30 years.
Madam Speaker, the graph now being displayed shows interest costs as a percentage of tax revenues in the mid-1990s during the FinSac period. Interest costs as a percentage of tax revenues climbed rapidly, peaking at nearly 70% in the midst of the global financial crisis between 2008 to 2009, and it peaked again, to about 71% and started to decline thereafter, the successful 2010 Jamaica debt exchange to 30.5% in 2016 when this administration took the reins of government. And as of this budget, very important, Madam Speaker, as of this budget, Mr. Speaker rather, only 18.7% of tax revenues will go towards paying interest on debt. Mr. Speaker, this shows why we must always maintain fiscal discipline. From having to pay 71% of tax revenues to having now paid down the debt, we only are going to be paying 18.7%. We have all of that fiscal space created that we can now actually spend on giving relief to the people of Jamaica in a sustainable way. So this is the result, let's just be clear, this is the result of not spending the $40 billion on temporary relief, but sticking to the discipline of paying down the debt. The interest on the debt is now smaller, which gives more room to spend sustainably on the things that matter to you, like social housing, increasing the income tax exemption threshold, installing water supply, and buying new buses over the last 9 years. It's a funny thing, you know, Madam Speaker, and I think Jamaicans are, Mr. Speaker, and I think Jamaicans are coming to the understanding now that you have people who will say, I will spend this money on you because I care about you, without looking on the sustainability, whether or not that expenditure makes sense. And people who are suffering don't look behind the popularity promise. All they think it sounds good and it's going to give me immediate gratification. But what it does is to create a long-term immiseration, because you can only spend that money once. And it didn't really help you, and so you have to come back again. And so you end up in a dependency. And then that dependency, when not fulfilled, ends up in disappointment. And then people say, I can't bother with politics. This struggle that we have gone through to move our debt from as high as 140% of GDP to now 68% of GDP, and to reduce our debt servicing ratio to tax revenues from 71% to 18%, is a symbol of struggle and sacrifice. It is. But it is also putting us in a different place where each Jamaican must be vested in ensuring that whoever is the government, whichever government, that we maintain this path, because this is the only way to truly and really care for you. That's the only way, my Jamaican brothers and sisters, to care for you. We can't care for you by taking the money that we should pay down debt and spend it. We can't care for you by taking our reserves that keep the foreign exchange rate stable and go party with it. That's not how we care. How we care is to manage the government responsibly. Don't make bad policy decisions. Be frugal and prudent so that we secure long-term revenues for which we can make long-term investment in your future. This government genuinely cares for you. You think I don't have the struggles on this side to be reckless? You think I don't have the struggles of people getting nervous and seeing, oh God, look at what is happening, you have to spend money? You think I don't have those struggles?
Run with it.
But I don't run with it, Madam Speaker. I don't run with it. And you know why, Madam Speaker? Because, you know, I pass the stage of trying to be in a popularity game.
Thank you. Do what has to be done.
So I am not going to go do reckless things for popularity. Madam Speaker, I do it for the love, not for the likes. There is a direct and inextricable link between good economic management and our ability to fix our roads, build hospitals and healthcare centers, build new schools, buy new buses and garbage trucks, provide communities with water, invest in irrigation, and support our farmers. In other words, Madam Speaker, good economic management can yam. Good economic management produces dividends for the citizens who are shareholders in Jamaica Inc. They have invested their hopes and trust into our government, and they expect that their government will be good stewards of the talents. My administration has paid dividends to the people of Jamaica through tax reductions and givebacks. The government that we have The budget that we have presented represents the 8th consecutive budget of no new taxes and the 10th consecutive budget of no net new taxes. This is unprecedented in Jamaica, but has now become a feature of the Jamaican economy. And, Madam Speaker, I claim paternity for that picnic. I claim paternity for that picnic named No New Taxes. In Jamaica, in fact, Mr. Speaker, we have done much more than not introduce new taxes. We have reduced taxes more than in any other period since independence. That is a fact. Here are some of the dividends that the Jamaican people have gotten from our good stewardship of taxes. We have increased the income tax threshold. When we came into office, the threshold was $592,800. It is now $1.7 million and will move to $1.8 million next month. And then to $2 million over the next 2 budgets. Increasing the income tax threshold is my baby. No matter how the PMP tries to claim it now, after first rejecting it.
Thank you.
Every PAYE taxpayer should take comfort that as much as we can, we will reduce their income tax.
Thank you.
It is in our DNA.
Thank you. DNA said no.
We reduced GCT from 16.5% to 15%. People don't even remember that. And we are reducing GCT on residential electricity by more than 50%, from 15 to 17%. We reduced transfer tax on property from 5% to 2% and reduced the ad valorem stamp duty with a flat rate and replaced it with a flat rate of $5,000 per document. We increased the pension relief and age relief from $80,000 to $250,000 each, and we plan to increase this in the next budget to $350,000 each. We can't leave out our pensioners. We increased the turnover threshold required for registration to pay general consumption tax from $3 million to $10 million, and now we are increasing it further to $15 million. More relief for small business. We also increased the de minimis value for imported goods for custom purposes from $50 to $100, and the duty-free allowance for inbound passengers from $500 to $1,000. We reduced estate taxes, reduced the asset tax on financial institutions, abolished the asset tax on non-financial institutions, and abolished the minimum business tax. What did they do in their time? Tax increases year after year. Madam Speaker, when they were the government, the people approached the budget season with trepidation, wondering what additional taxes will be imposed. Today at budget time, the population is looking forward to goodies. However, I prefer to say the government will deliver dividends on the vote of confidence you placed in us. Madam Speaker, we have created an environment of tax certainty and predictability. Workers, families, and businesses can plan their affairs and think long-term without worrying that the government will impose some tax to mash up their plans. We are not going back to the days of fiscal recklessness and more taxes under the PNP. Madam Speaker, the PNP calls their plan the 4 E's. They definitely have a legacy of 4 E's. Excessive debt, economic erosion, endless hardship, and empty promises. Madam Speaker, at this point I want to address some comments made by the opposition spokesman on finance and the leader of the opposition regarding securitization transactions that the government has undertaken. Securitization is the packaging and sale of future income, of a future income stream from an asset for a lump sum value today. This government was successful in creating a concession for the Norman Manley International Airport, which generates a reliable stream of income. This income is contractual. I want the country to remember that the previous PNP government tried to create the same concession out of the NMIA and failed miserably. They did not have even one bidder willing to take up the concession under their government and stewardship. The key question then is, what do we do with the lump sum money that we receive now? Do we use it to party? No. We have used it to pay down debt. In other words, relieving ourselves of current and future expense obligations. We have used it to create new infrastructure like the extension of Highway 2000 and the Maypen to Williams Field. Which enables us to generate more revenues in the future. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. It is a transparent transaction where there is no risk to the government. Indeed, it is a credit to the Jamaican economy that the international capital market looks favorably on Jamaican securities. These kinds of opportunities are only really available to prudent government. Madam Speaker, when is the sale of future income a problem? When would the opposition need to be concerned? It is a problem, for example, when you forward sell a commodity at a fixed price that you have not yet produced, and then when it comes time for producing it, the cost of producing the commodity exceeds the price at which you had contracted. Yes, that is when you have a problem. And especially if you collected the money up front and you spend it off, you're definitely not going to have it to meet your obligation to produce the commodity that you're supposed to produce. Now, if you do that, then you really have a problem because you're going to be producing at a loss. Is it a surprise that this is what the PNP government did in 2001 when they forward sold bauxite on the international market to finance their FinSank budget? The government, the Jamaican government, later became exposed when market conditions deteriorated and the cost of producing the bauxite far exceeded the contracted price. And the government of the day, the Bruce Golding-led administration of 2010, was obliged to honor the volumes of bauxite to which the previous PNP government had committed. Jamaica ended up having to pay US $31 million to the company that produced the bauxite to cover the loss. You can't compare this foolishness of the PNP with our masterful management of the economy. Madam Speaker, there is a very popular song, you know. It says, they are not like us. We are not like them. Two different philosophies and way of thinking. When we say that we believe in fiscal discipline and the proper management of the economy, because that is how we can genuinely show that we care for you. So again, another example. They made a bad decision, and we have to pick up the check. So when I hear them criticize what we're doing, it is grating. Grating, indeed unfair. And we have to, I'm sorry I have to do this, but if we don't remind the people, Madam Speaker, unlike the forward sale agreement that the PNP administration entered into, the securitization that we have undertaken are prudent financial strategies that leverages existing predictable revenue streams without creating future liabilities or exposing the government to market risks beyond our control. Madam Speaker, the graph now being displayed illustrates the trajectory of poverty prevalence in our country. It clearly shows that under my administration, we have achieved a steady and measurable decline in poverty. Apart from the temporary spike in 2020 caused by the pandemic, The steady reduction in poverty is clear evidence that our economic gains are reaching the people who need it the most. Madam Speaker, we recognize that while progress has been made, much more needs to be done to ensure that benefits of economic growth are inclusive and sustainable. Our commitment is to share the prosperity where every Jamaican, regardless of background or location, has access to opportunities for upward mobility. Whether in rural communities, inner city neighborhoods, or remote districts, we are working to ensure that no one is left behind and that absolute poverty is eradicated. Importantly, Madam Speaker, this government's approach is not about handouts that provide temporary relief, but ultimately, relief, Madam Speaker, which ultimately keep people poor and dependent. We believe in empowerment, not dependency. And that is why our policies are designed to equip Jamaicans with the tools, skills, and opportunities they need to lift themselves and their families out of poverty for good. Madam Speaker, the fact that our economy remains on solid ground despite the combined shocks of global inflation, the lingering effects of the pandemic, and the increasing threat of climate change is a testament to the progress we have made. This is not just economic progress, it is economic transformation. And the transformation did not happen by chance. It is a result of strong, competent leadership, sound economic policies, and the deliberate choices we have made to protect the Jamaican people while safeguarding the stability of our economy. But, Madam Speaker, we know that we are mere servants of the Almighty, and all good things come only from His blessings and grace. As 1 Corinthians 3 verse 7 reminds us, so neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who makes things grow. So this is our next chapter, the pivot to growth. This is what the economy must focus on in the next decade. I feel very humbled, and I give God thanks for allowing me to be able to steward the country in this decade. And to have achieved, by His grace, what we have achieved. We ask now for His guidance and mercy as we move to the next chapter of growth. Madam Speaker, I'm about to display a chart which it's hard to present the information without the political undertones. But I would really want members to ruminate on what is about to be presented. The graph now being displayed shows GDP shown as gross value added at constant prices since independence. It shows that our most rapid period of economic growth was the decade immediately following independence.
I like it. It's mine. The prices blow my mind.
Since then, we have had short periods of growth punctuated by declines and crises. We had the oil crisis and the socialist experiment of the 1970s that led to massive capital flight and the exodus of skilled labor, leading to a 20% fall in GDP between 1974 and 1980. Madam Speaker, it took Jamaica until 1990 to get back to the level of output we had in 1973. In other words, it took us 17 years to recover from that first $17 years to recover from that first. And the overlap, Madam Speaker, this was the biggest global health and economic crisis in 100 years. But the difference this time was that our recovery was V-shaped. A victory. And we recovered in 3 years. I really don't want to politicize this, but this is a fact. When you add up all those years, Jamaica has spent 38 years out of our 62 years as an independent country recovering from crises. Let that sink in. 2 of the 4 major crises that we faced were directly caused by bad economic management of the PNP in the 1970s and 90s, accounting for 24 of the 38 years of crises. As a fact, not rewriting history, just bringing the facts. I didn't want to go back down this road because this is behind us. But when there are attempts to whitewash, separate and apart from our debt recovery efforts, Jamaica has a new feature in our economy that the other side can't claim. They weren't close. Their name can't call on that one. And that feature, Madam Speaker, is resilience. Yes. My administration has focused on building fiscal buffers through provisioning the National Disaster Fund. No administration put money inside here. No. Right? Disaster Fund. No administration put money inside here. No. Right? Shocks. Before the pandemic, Jamaica recorded 20 consecutive quarters of economic expansion. After the pandemic-induced contraction, we rebounded with 13 consecutive quarters of economic growth. Over the last 2 quarters, we had a temporary setback due to the impact of Hurricane Beryl and Tropical Storm Raphael. But, Madam Speaker, let me disappoint those who seem to be gleefully celebrating and wishing depression and recession on Jamaica. Let me disappoint them and disabuse them quickly. We will recover and return to growth in short order. We are certain that Jamaica, like any other small developing country, will experience shocks. With climate change and the growing local geopolitical uncertainties, we observe that shocks are becoming more frequent, more intense, simultaneous, and they overlap. So the one thing is certain, Jamaica is going to be hit by some shock. So Jamaica must therefore be prepared for shocks. And importantly, we must not create any shocks of our own. We must not create any shocks of our own, as happened in the 1970s and the 1990s. Resilience is in our culture. We liquor, but we talawa. My administration has translated this spirit of ours, talawaness, into our economy and government. We are resilient, and that is wholly and solely a policy objective of my administration. Resilience is my picnic. However, Madam Speaker, the reality is that except for the decade immediately after independence, our growth has remained anemic and far below what is required to achieve our vision of shared prosperity, higher incomes, and an economy that generates opportunities for all. The next chapter of Jamaica's economic journey must therefore be about accelerating growth while maintaining fiscal and macroeconomic stability. Resilience is an important part of accelerating growth, as without the capacity to withstand and adapt to shocks, recovery can be slow. Our increased resilience means that we are already on the path to faster growth, better equipped to navigate challenges and seize new opportunities. Madam Speaker, in November 2024, I outlined the key pillars of the government's growth strategy, ASPIRE. A, access to economic opportunities for all, that is the inclusive growth agenda. Safety and security, S. P, people and our focus on human capital development. I, for infrastructure development. R, for reform of the bureaucracy to improve ease and speed of doing business and to reduce the cost of doing business. And E, economic diversification. Madam Speaker, the A in ASPIRE, I must emphasize that the first and most fundamental pillar of our growth strategy is access and inclusion. Growth must be for all Jamaicans. True progress is not measured solely by GDP figures, but by how many lives are improved, how many doors are opened, and how many Jamaicans, regardless of background, have a fair shot at success. Madam Speaker, I have said this before, but let me say it again so that there is no room for misunderstanding and misinformation. The government does not believe in trickle-down economics. The notion that if we simply grow the economy at the top, prosperity will somehow find its way to the rest of the society. History has shown that growth must be deliberately structured to be inclusive. That is why our approach to economic expansion is people-centered and opportunity-driven. It is about broad-based empowerment, ensuring that growth fuels investment in education, skills training, small business development, and community infrastructure. It's about expanding opportunity and ensuring that no one is left behind. This government is systematically strengthening our social protection framework, expanding opportunities, and breaking the cycle of generational poverty. We are not just talking about it, we are taking decisive actions. In 2021, we introduced Jamaica's first ever social pension, providing a guaranteed income of $15,000 for vulnerable Jamaicans 75 years and older, ensuring that they can live in dignity in their golden years. We have ramped up investment in the new social housing program, which provides safe and secure housing for the country's most vulnerable. Over 300 houses have been built or handed over or under construction, transforming lives and communities. In 2022, we implemented the Tourism Pension Scheme, making Jamaica the first country in the world to implement a comprehensive pension plan for tourism. In 2024, we launched the Jamaica Entertainers and Creatives Insurance Plan. Where is Minister Grange? To protect our artists, musicians, and creatives, recognizing their vital contribution to our economy. We do real things, things that really make a difference. Not some, pull out of the hat promise of $1 billion where they don't even say where that $1 billion is going to come from. We increased funding for the program of advancement through health and education path by 30% in 2024. We are actively working on introducing unemployment insurance, a critical reform that will provide financial relief to Jamaicans who face sudden loss. Madam Speaker, while strengthening our social safety net is crucial, we must go further. It is not enough to support people in times of hardship. We must create pathways out of poverty. Last year, I announced the Hope for Children Trust Fund, a groundbreaking initiative. The reality is that thousands of children in low-income families reach adulthood without any savings or assets to help them get a start in life. This lack of capital perpetuates generational poverty. We must break this cycle. I don't think people understand, well, I'm sure people do understand, the difference in life outcomes for a child who grows up in a household where that household has some asset base, whether it is a house or a piece of land, or their father had a car, or their mother operated a business, relative to a household where the child will have no asset on which to rely. Total difference. And that, Madam Speaker, is the critical characterization of the Jamaican society. And that is why we see that Jamaica has this wide disparity in terms of income distribution. The income distribution disparity really starts with the initial endowment of households. I mean, you'll always have households that have endowments and fail. So households that start off with some assets and then they lose it. And then you'll have households who start off with no assets but gain it. But that is not going to be enough to close the gap. Madam Speaker, we are not a socialist government, but we believe in being instrumental in pursuing real, equitable policies that will make fundamental changes to the income and asset profile of the country. And that is why we have this Hope for Children Trust. Through the Hope for Children Trust Fund, every eligible child will be provided with a long-term savings account funded annually by the government. The funds will accumulate with interest and will be accessible on or after the child's 18th birthday for transformational purposes, such as education and skills training, home or commercial property acquisition, or business investment. Madam Speaker, though the government will be the central contributor to this fund, the way in which we are developing it is that, which now often happens, persons privately could contribute to the fund generally, or they could specifically say, I want to contribute to this person. I mean, it happens regularly where, for example, a distant family member, as they say, I take this child and I adopt this child informally. But now we are creating a formal structure where private sector, private individuals could also, if they choose, and I'm encouraging them when the fund is fully mobilized, to make a contribution to it. So that a child who comes from a household with no asset at 18 will know that they have something to start the world with. Whether they want to go buy 2 goats and cow, which when I go out into the country, I see young men come up to me and say they want goat, they want cow, they do little farming, we'll help you. If you want to buy tools, we'll help you. If you want to further your education, you have that money there. If you want a down payment and a deposit on a little piece of land, you have that money there. So we will give you that start to correct the historic intergenerational endowment inequality that has plagued us from the days of enslavement. So, Madam Speaker, any Jamaican child born on or after the 60th anniversary of independence, that's August 6, 2022, who is part of a PATH household or a ward of the state will be eligible to register under the program. We are making progress with determining the legal structure of the fund and examining options for how the fund will be managed and administered, and I'm pleased to report that during the upcoming financial year, the government will seed the fund with 200 million Jamaican dollars. And again, I put out the call to the private sector, start looking at making contributions to this fund. We welcome it. Madam Speaker, the government has pursued a deliberate strategy of socializing wealth by enabling Jamaicans to own shares in key national infrastructure assets through the stock market, literally paying dividends to the people of Jamaica. This approach democratizes economic opportunities, allowing citizens to benefit directly from state-owned enterprises, transitioning to public ownership. In May 2019, we divested Wigton Farms, and in March 2020, we divested 80% of Trans-Jamaica Highway. Tens of thousands of small investors have benefited from dividend income and capital gains through ownership of these shares, aligning national development with wealth creation and broad-based economic empowerment of the people. Unlike the PNP, who socialized debt while transferring wealth from the poor to the rich during the FinSAC era, Madam Speaker, I am pleased to report that the offer for sale for the remaining 20% of the shares of Trans-Jamaica Highway has been oversubscribed with over 22,000 applications totaling $12 billion. Madam Speaker, Jamaican people, get the message that this government is about creating wealth. Madam Speaker, this is a vote of confidence in Jamaica. These investors know that Jamaica today has the strongest economy since independence. This is not rhetoric. This is not an opinion. This is an undeniable fact backed by empirical data on inflation, unemployment, exchange rate, balance of payment, net international reserve, debt to GDP ratio, and poverty reduction. Madam Speaker, creating wealth and making it accessible to all is the DNA of the JLP administration, and this is how we accelerate growth. There are several other assets that the government is preparing to bring to market so that the ordinary Jamaicans can participate and share in the value they create when paired with private sector enterprise and innovation. At this stage, I can announce that the Jamaica Mortgage Bank is being prepared as the next asset to come to market. I want to turn quickly to the S in Aspire, and that S stands for safety and security. Madam Speaker, there can be no real economic growth, no true inclusion without security. For too long, violent crime has cast a shadow over our progress, stealing the potential of young lives and holding back our economic transformation. Thankfully, we can now say the tide is turning. Jamaica is taking decisive actions against violence producers, and the results are now evident. Madam Speaker, in 2024, Jamaica recorded a 19% reduction in murders, following a 7% decline in 2023, bringing our homicide rate to 40.1 per 100,000. While still high, we are now outperforming some of our regional peers, a stark contrast to 2016, when Jamaica had the highest crime rate in the Caribbean at 50 per 100,000. Unlike much of the region, where homicide rates are currently surging past ours, we have reversed the trend, and now other countries are studying our approach to reducing violence. Notably, Madam Speaker, the 2024 Christmas season was the safest in 20 years, with just 6 murders recorded during the Christmas week. Since 2024, the country has seen a sustained decline in murders, culminating in 47 murders in February 2025, the lowest monthly total in 25 years, and a 43% reduction compared to February 2024. If you were to compare between February 2022 and February 2025, murders have declined 55%. Additionally, major crimes as a whole, including murders, shootings, rape, robbery, and break-ins, have declined by 21%, reaching the lowest level since disaggregated data collection began in 1999. Jamaica is now safer than at any point in the last 20 years. On our current trajectory, Jamaica is on track to record fewer than 1,000 murders in a single year for the first time since 2003. We are confident that this downward trajectory will persist, as these results stem from our deliberate planning, strategic investments, and targeted efforts to dismantle organized criminal gangs. My government has recognized violence as a national emergency, and as such, we have made the strongest sustained investment in national security in Jamaica's history. In 2015, before my administration took office, capital expenditure for national security was $2.67 billion. $2.67 billion. Yes, there were times in the 90s and early 2000s where the capital budget was non-existent. So when we wonder why we have the security problem, just trace it back to poor economic policies, where you had to spend 70% of your tax revenues on repaying debt caused by poor economic decisions. By 2018, we increased the spending on security to $12.7 billion. And in 2019, we made a record $19.5 billion investment to modernize our security apparatus. This substantial increase in our first term was necessary to compensate for years of underinvestment. And you can just look at the years of underinvestment. In fact, when you look at the last 20 years, it's clear that, the Jamaica Labour Party government made the greatest attempt at funding the security forces. These funds have strengthened our security forces through investments in equipment, vehicles, intelligence, forensic technology, and advanced training in cybercrime, counter-trafficking, and financial intelligence. Yes. We have enhanced the operational capability of the Jamaica Constabulary Force and Jamaica Defence Force, rearming them with modern tools to dismantle criminal networks. In the case of the JCF, we have invested in building one of the most advanced law enforcement agencies in the hemisphere. To this end, significant progress is being made on the development of a C5 center, that is a state-of-the-art command and control center. This cutting-edge center will seamlessly integrate, coordinate, and analyze real-time data from all available sources, including CCTV and body-worn cameras. I break from my script, Madam Speaker, to point out that there's a lot of debate going on. You know, why is it that the JDF and the JCF are not wearing cameras on their person? I think there is a kind of misunderstanding to believe that standalone cameras can be effective. That's not the case. You have to build out an entire back-end network to ensure that the footage on the camera can be downloaded, that it can be stored and retrieved, that it can be digitally transmitted to other locations, and that it can be protected from manipulation. When we say that we're going to do a force-wide use of body cameras, it's not just buying a little camera off the shelf or getting a camera from a supplier here. We have to think of and implement a system-wide comprehensive solution. And I'm afraid, Madam Speaker, that sometimes this is just the haphazard thinking that forces governments into making wrong decisions. But, Madam Speaker, it's the same thing that we have done with our police cars. You know, we have totally changed the way in which we order and purchase and maintain and use our police cars. We don't buy a police car. We buy a transportation service, a full-end solution. And just to be clear, there are no used cars in what we are procuring. So, this cutting-edge center will seamlessly integrate, coordinate, and analyze real-time data from all available sources, including CCTV and body-worn cameras, supported by a robust back-end infrastructure. This development is a game changer for modern, efficient, and intelligence-driven policing that will have a major impact on crime. The government's Project ROC initiative, which was launched in 2019 to modernize the physical infrastructure of the JCF, has seen the refurbishment and construction of numerous police facilities across the island. Through the public sector compensation review, my government has ensured that our police officers are now in receipt of a more reasonable salary and pensions, befitting of their profession, and provides a better foundation for future negotiations. The resulting boost to the morale cannot be overstated, and it has made a career in the JCF more appealing. For the first time in the history of the force, the establishment strength of 14,000 officers has been met. More police officers and more vehicles mean greater coverage of our communities and more rapid responses to threats and citizen emergencies. Since 2021, the purchases of vehicles and the build-out of Jamaica ICCTV systems have been transferred to the capitalized recurrent budget to ensure continuous replenishment. This is a big move, Madam Speaker, because instead of treating them as capital projects, one-off expenditure, they are now being treated as items to be maintained and consistently upgraded. Madam Speaker, the role of the JDF in the overall reduction in violent crime through their support for the JCF is crucial, particularly in areas where specialized security measures have been declared, that is the zones of special operations and states of public emergency. The JDF is the premier defense force in CARICOM, notably leading the planning and the preparation for the CARICOM Joint Task Force in Haiti since September 2024, and executing multi-country military exercises enhancing interoperability in cybersecurity, counter-narcotics, search and rescue, and disaster relief. Madam Speaker, our borders are more secure than ever before, due in large part to new patrol vessels, helicopters, maritime patrol aircraft, and other technical equipment we procured for the JDF. They are now better equipped to interdict illicit vessels and aircraft trafficking weapons, narcotics, and people. This year, we will further enhance maritime security with the addition of 24 surface interceptor vessels, strengthening the protection of our border and blue economy. However, Madam Speaker, we note that most illicit weapons which fuel gang violence enter Jamaica through formal ports of entry. To improve our ability to secure this channel, we have been investing in advanced scanners and enhanced security protocols at all customs, at all areas in Jamaica customs. And the result is evidenced by major gun finds at our ports in recent times, including yesterday. I would like to acknowledge the Jamaica Customs for their increased vigilance and generally commend the security forces and our partners for increased cooperation, intelligence sharing, which has yielded great results. Every weapon and ammunition kept off our street is potentially a life saved. Additionally, we are finalizing the Customs Mutual Assistance Agreement with the United States, which will enable even further and greater intelligence sharing to strengthen our port security and protect our national and economic interests. Madam Speaker, data and intelligence confirms that Jamaica's chronic violence is driven by organized criminal enterprises, euphemistically called gangs. It's not sociological or economic factors like poverty or unemployment that drives violence, as the opposition would have us believe. More than 70% of murders in Jamaica are directly related to gangs. Madam Speaker, I want to draw your attention to the graph being displayed, or about to be displayed. It is the same graph that I believe the leader of the opposition displayed. But he had a different interpretation of the statistics. Let me offer mine. Let us recall that the drop in murders from 2009 to 2014, which you see as the first arrow, for which the opposition seeks to take credit, was a direct result of the state of public emergency launched in May 2010 by the Jamaica Labour Party administration. Which dismantled and scattered the gangs and created a 21% drop in murders in 2011. 21% drop in murders in 2011. No other police action has resulted in any such drop. In 2011, murders stabilized, as you can see, and in 2012 stabilized. This created a respite where targeted police operations against gangs and violence producers resulted in 2024 having the lowest number of murders in the last 20 years. So 2014 was the lowest number of murders, and that is under the PNP in the last 20 years. But it's not as a result of the PNP's action. It is as a result of the 2010 state of public emergency, which gave you a 21% reduction, then a slight carry-on reduction in 2012. Madam Speaker, I still posit that if the opposition then had supported the government in extending the state of public emergency, the fall in murders would have been even greater. So in 2013, there was a little spike in murders. And in 2014, in mid-2014, the PNP introduced the Unite for Change, an ostensible crime-fighting strategy that leaned heavily on social interventions. There was also a change of police commissioners and an apparent change in crime-fighting strategy. By 2015, murders began to rise again under the PNP, even with the much-touted Unite for Change initiative in full effect. The truth, Madam Speaker, is that the PNP shifted focus from targeted operations against gangs and gang leaders and allowed them space to regroup. The number of gangs in the country increased from 200 in 2010 to 350 by 2016. And we saw the impact of this from 2015 through 2017. That is why my administration decided to take decisive actions. We recognize the emergency threat organized criminal enterprises and violence producers pose to specific communities and the country generally. We responded with zones of special operations and states of public emergencies to halt the persistent spiral in murders from 2015 to 2017. The SOEs and zones of special operations were successful in taking back communities from gangs, displacing criminals, disrupting their operations, and limiting their space and opportunity to commit crimes. That's what the SOEs do. This resulted, Madam Speaker, in a 22% reduction in murders in 2018 and a leveling off between 2019 and 2020. The success of the SOEs and the ZOZOs came with the support of the opposition at the time. And I here must give credit to the former leader of the opposition, the Honorable Dr. Peter Phillips, who understood their necessity and supported their extensions. However, since the change in leadership in the opposition in 2020, we have not been able to use the SOEs to full effect. We have used them, but not to full effect. And we saw a 10% spike in murders in 2021. This could have been prevented and lives saved if narrow political interests parading as protecting rights did not blind the current opposition leader to protecting the right to life of the victims of murder by supporting extensions of the SOE. Madam Speaker, in parallel with emergency measures, this administration in 2018 embarked on an ambitious plan to indigenously reform and reorganize the JCF under the direction of a new commissioner, Major General Anthony Anderson, to include development of leadership, recruitment and training of personnel, and the acquisition of material and technology. It was never the intention of the government to rely solely on emergency measures. We used emergency measures to treat with the crime situation, which was over and above the existing capacity of regular law enforcement at the time. And we used the space and attenuation it created to build the capacity of the security forces. Therefore, in 2022, we began to realize the impact of the reforms and capability building investments in the JCF. With improved intelligence gathering, better investigative and crime-solving capabilities, and a return to more targeted and focused strategies on gangs and violence producers, during this period, we saw the interdiction and prosecution of several gangs. Now, a lot of people didn't understand that while the opposition and other, talking heads and so forth were criticizing the government over SOEs, we were quietly taking down the gangs. We brought about 4 major gangs through the court system using the anti-gang legislation, which had never been used before it was passed. We didn't say anything about it. Before, it was never used when it was passed. Never used. Never used. Right? And we now have how many on trial? And we have 19 cases now coming up. So we were, we were being criticized, and everybody wants to claim and criticize the government and all making all kinds of claims. Well, we were strategic, doing what we were doing, because we know what the real problem was, and we know that our investment was going to pay off. And then you began to see the impact of better investigations. Several really terrible atrocities and crimes were committed, and within weeks and months, the member from East Kingston and Port Royal can attest to that. Very effective investigations. So that is as a direct result of government strategy and investment and improvement. So while the opposition and other talking heads were busy criticizing government strategy and policy, we were quietly doing what we know need to be done. So, Madam Speaker, today we can say that year to date, murders are at their lowest level in 25 years. The Minister of National Security tells me that we are 33% behind where we were last year. But I still lament that had we the support of the opposition in the use of SOEs, the fall in murders would have been even greater. So let me be clear. The PNP, under this leader of the opposition, can take no credit for the reduction in murders. They have done everything possible to obstruct the government. Everything possible to obstruct the government, and now want to stand up and claim credit.
They are benevolent. You benevolent. You benevolent. Your party generates violence here.
Madam Speaker, we will continue to invest in our security forces and support the transformation of the JCF into a modern, professional, and technology-driven security force. We will continue to target gangs, which account for 70% of murders in the country. If we focus on eliminating gangs, we can reduce our murder rate to below the regional average of 15 per 100,000. And I'm pleased to announce, Madam Speaker, that police intelligence now estimates, listen to this one, police intelligence now estimates that there are fewer than 100 active gangs in Jamaica since the beginning of the year, coming from 350. Many have been dismantled or have gone dormant. They are laying low because they know they are being hunted relentlessly by the security forces. Madam Speaker, this administration takes national security seriously, and through the National Security Council, something that we have instituted in a consistent way, we have been able to coordinate, enhance, and strengthen the work and collaborative efforts of various security forces to yield greater synergies from our security forces. And again, I would like to acknowledge and thank, but most importantly, encourage the members of our security forces. Through their respective heads, the Chief of Defense Staff of the JDF Vice Admiral Antoinette Weems Gorman, CD, Commissioner of Police Dr. Kevin Blake, CD, Director General of MOCA, Colonel Desmond Edwards, and Commissioner of Customs Dr. Velma Ricketts Walker, CD. Continue with your concerted effort to make Jamaica safe. Together, we will eliminate the gangs and bring peace to our country. Madam Speaker, I want to now turn to the P, people in Aspire. Jamaica's greatest asset is our people. That is why this government continues to invest in education, training, and job opportunities, ensuring that every Jamaican, regardless of background, has the chance to learn, earn, and thrive. Through programs like the LIFT program, that is Learning and Investment for Transformation, and the CARE program, Community Action for Rewarding Engagement, we are directly supporting young Jamaicans on their journey to skill development and employment. The second cohort of the LIFT is underway, providing education, mentorship, and work experience for youth who need a start. Also, over 1,250 unattached youth across all 63 communities are now enrolled in training under CARE, receiving stipends and transport support to remove financial barriers. Madam Speaker, these programs transform lives. A school leaver from an inner city community or a rural parish can now access training and have a real pathway to a career. Heart touches the lives of everyday people every day. You know, Madam Speaker, I was in Brownstown recently. I just stopped in the town and I saw the heart outreach workers with a little tent in the middle of the town encouraging people to come and sign up. I was very heartened to see Heart doing that. So Heart is out there doing their best to try and pull people in who are not currently in the labor force or who are seeking a job but are unskilled. Heart is actively out there trying to bring them in. And almost every year I come here, Madam Speaker, we come with some different form of program that's, specifically catered to a certain set age profile or life cycle to attract, because, Madam Speaker, at 3.5% unemployment, we are technically almost at full employment. And the leader of the opposition and the opposition spokesman mentioned that the pressure is increasing for us to find other solutions for labor. But before we go that route, Madam Speaker, the government is going to work hard, explore every option, give every incentive, so that those who stay by the roadside and dig out their hand middle, as we say, we give them an opportunity to put a tool in their hand. So today I have Akon Pitt and Gary Smith with us. Akon was unsure about his next step after his stellar CXC results. At the behest of his Member of Parliament, Akon was the Member of Parliament, Alando Terrelong. Akon was a participant in the first cohort of the LIFT program. After training, he was placed and paid at Carimed, where he had an exceptional journey. Akon is now at the Jamaica Cooperative Insurance Agency. Gary is a 20-year-old pursuing a business administration level 2 certification as an on-the-job trainee at Coleyville Training Limited under the CARE program. He dreams of becoming a certified engineering contractor and establishing his own air conditioning repair business. Gary is now closer to realizing his dream. These are both young men that the government has empowered through the Heart Trust NSTA. Akon and Gary are from the community of Gregory Park in Minister Terrelong's constituency in the soon-to-be parish of Portmore. There are hundreds of thousands of Akons and Gary that we have empowered through skills training since 2020. 552,534 to be exact. And this is primarily, look, since the elimination of fees, over 150,000 persons have signed up for the various vocational programs at Heart. So, let's be clear. Heart is not a perfect institution, but it is a hard-working institution. Madam Speaker, we have already had significant success in public-private partnerships and the apprenticeship model with the Amber Heart Academy. Nearly 500 youth have graduated specializing in data analytics, cybersecurity, web and app development. Most have secured paid internships with career pathways. 112 JDF soldiers are also now being trained in coding, which will strengthen the JDF's technological capabilities. Madam Speaker, building on the success of this model, I'm pleased to announce an expanded apprenticeship program in critical industries that urgently need more skilled labor. These industries include construction and the hospitality sector. Over the next 2 years, 300 young people will receive paid hands-on training alongside industry professionals. Each participant will earn a weekly stipend of $13,500 to $16,500 with a 10% set aside as compulsory savings. This approach allows our youth to build a career, support their families, and contribute to the economy, all at the same time. Madam Speaker, we will begin this pilot in conjunction with the Sandals Corporate University. Additionally, later this year, we will establish the Institute of Higher Apprenticeship in partnership with industry and the Inter-American Development Bank. This will provide advanced vocational certification while participants work in the field. A young person will be able to pursue, let's say, a degree in logistics or a diploma in manufacturing through an apprenticeship track, gaining academic credentials and practical experience at the same time upon graduating. Upon graduating, they will be ready to take on higher paying jobs and be certified. Madam Speaker, the jobs of tomorrow demand skills in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. To prepare our students, HART is investing $400 million to establish state-of-the-art HART. I'm going to say STEM labs, but I'm going to change it, Madam Speaker, because in our culture, the creative industry is a strategic industry for us, and it is part of our strategy for diversification. So we are the only government to take up $1 billion and place it at the disposal of the film industry. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. That is the largest budgetary allocation to the creative sector ever. So, let's not get drawn into. So, Madam Speaker, HART is investing $400 million to establish state-of-the-art STEAM labs. So this will also include not just things for mechatronics and engineering and so forth, but also computers for creative designs, for managing sound stages and so forth. So within those labs, there will be a place for persons who would want to pursue the technical elements of the creative industry. So these labs, as I said before, will feature robotic kits, virtual welding simulators, drone technology, hydroponics, and 3D printers, ensuring that our children from all backgrounds can access world-class technical education. To further support STEM talent, we are launching the Boost Building Opportunities for Outstanding STEM Students program. Beginning in April 2025, HART graduates in Level 4 STEM-related courses will be eligible for a grant of up to $300,000 to purchase specialized tools, software to start their business. Madam Speaker, I know that there are many in Jamaica who are skeptical of technology. They see technology as a threat. Madam Speaker, we can't view technology in that way. Technology is immanent, it is ubiquitous, and it is universal. Can't escape it. AI, that is artificial intelligence, is reshaping industries worldwide. When the first industrial revolution started, Jamaica was still a colony. That's a reality. So Jamaica didn't benefit from the first industrial revolution. And in fact, in a strange way, when you read Capitalism and Slavery, you would see that it is technically the advance of technology that made slavery unprofitable, and which technically, depending on which historian you read, led to the end of slavery as an economic way of production. So technology is not bad. Technology is a liberating tool if you approach it the right way. So, Madam Speaker, when the information industrial revolution came about, the information age, which is not more than 50 years old, Jamaica was still trying to industrialize. So we missed another wave of technology as a colonial developing country. We are now in the 5th industrial revolution, and Jamaica cannot afford to be left behind. Technology provides the ability to leapfrog, and we must position ourselves to do so. I have given directives to the Minister of Education to ensure that AI is prominent in our national training and development strategy, which is why we appointed an AI task force. This government is committed to ensuring that Jamaica is an active player and not a spectator in the global AI revolution. From the recommendations of the National Artificial Intelligence Task Force, we are implementing an AI work readiness strategy that includes integrating AI and coding into school curricula at all levels and promoting dedicated teacher training programs on AI. And we are launching a prompt engineering course through the Heart Trust NSTA to train students and public sector professionals in using AI tools effectively. Madam Speaker, in partnership with the Amber Group, the government will also establish a cutting-edge local AI lab, a public-private center of excellence where developers, researchers, entrepreneurs, and students can collaborate on AI solutions. The AI lab will serve as the catalyst for a new era of technological advancement in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, AI will disrupt some traditional jobs, but it will create new high-paying opportunities. This government is ensuring that Jamaicans are equipped to seize those opportunities and lead in the digital economy. Madam Speaker, we will also be using AI tools to help our children learn. We are developing the Jamaica Learning Assistant, a groundbreaking AI-powered platform designed to revolutionize learning with an end-to-end AI-generated and curated content, fully aligned with the national curriculum. And I don't know if the video is cued, but let me give you a preview of what it could do.
Introducing Jamaica Learning Assistant, the world's most comprehensive AI educational platform, reimagining learning for Jamaica. It's like giving every child a personal mentor who adapts to their needs and pace. Interactive adventures that make science and math come alive. Human-like AI tutors, detailed explanations, humor, poems, interactive tests, mind maps for visual understanding, videos and real-life applications of knowledge, so each lesson isn't just learned, but lived.
Who are scientists?
Scientists are people who study the natural world using observation, experimentation, and reasoning.
Teacher, tell me a joke about scientists.
Why did the scientists bring a ladder to the lab? Because they wanted to reach new heights in their research.
Come with us as we transform education for all our children.
Madam Speaker, we are determined not to be left behind in this revolution. So we are going to be early adopters of the technology. And I encourage all parents, if you haven't yet done so, download one of the artificial intelligence apps. Play around with it. Ask it questions. You would be surprised how well structured, coordinated, and in-depth the answers you receive are. You would be surprised how you can train these AI bots to do specific tasks. So I would encourage all Jamaicans not to fear AI, but to develop an inquisitive mind about it. Let us not become spectators while another wave of technological development is going on. Let us ride that wave. Madam Speaker, starting September 2025, we will implement a dedicated school bus system for rural Jamaica to ensure equitable access, improved attendance, and enhanced safety while easing financial burdens on families. This is part of the dividends for good government. This will be rolled out in phases. Phase 1 is already underway, with the JUTC expanding services in Clarendon, Morant Bay, and Linstead, providing affordable transportation for students. We will add 12 additional 45-seater buses to the already existing fleet of 10 buses, giving the Montego Bay area a total of 22 buses. Phase 2 will see 100 fully refurbished buses deployed across parishes, with 60 buses in September 2025 for the start of the new school year, and another 40 buses by January 2026. Madam Speaker, these are school buses used in the American system. They will be refurbished. The doors will be placed on the correct side, the entrance doors. They will be governed. Look here. Madam Speaker, the buses will be refurbished. Just to repeat, the doors will be on the appropriate side for safety. And I think most importantly, the speed on these buses will be governed. So they won't be able to drive above a certain set speed to ensure safety of the children. On some of the buses, where there is connectivity, we will place cameras, and the collection of fares will be digital. Now, these are refurbished. They are going to be refurbished. So they will be refurbished with those.
So, it is not at all going to be entertain disturbance to the budget debate. Do not answer any member questioning you in this House. Please continue with the debate, Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this marks a transformative step in making school transportation safer, more reliable, and more affordable for Jamaican students. Others talk about it, but we do it. Madam Speaker, in the public discourse around human capital, there is a tendency to overlook the vital role of public health. A healthy society is a productive society, and so the reverse is also true. I'm not here going to deliver the extensive presentation which I know that the Minister of Health will deliver in the sectoral debate, but I could not let some accusations from the opposition leader go unanswered. It is clear that the opposition leader forgot what his government left behind in 2016 in healthcare, a system described by his spokesperson, his current spokesperson on health, as so broken down that surgeons had to don garbage bags to conduct surgeries. Today, we accept we are not perfect, but we have come a far way since that time. He has no moral authority to lecture us on the progress we have made since they left the healthcare system in shambles. Imagine how we would have feared if they were the government when the COVID pandemic hit us. Here are some of the truths about our health system today. There are more posts for doctors. There are more posts for nurses, more hospital beds, and there are more hospital beds to come. There are more operating theaters, and more theaters will be built. A healthcare budget that has expanded from $60 billion to $140 billion in 9 years, the largest increase, and this is with the largest infrastructure expansion in healthcare since independence. Madam Speaker, we agree that prevention is better than cure. They make light of our pre-screening program, Know Your Numbers. Well, after a year and a half of over 220,000 tests, after a year and a half, we have conducted over 222,000 tests, and this, Madam Speaker, is saving the lives of many Jamaicans. Because as they know, they are able to take corrective action. Madam Speaker, our investment is the most of any government in healthcare, and that is a fact. Madam Speaker, this government has invested significant sums in water. As I now turn to the I in Aspire, 150,000 Jamaicans now have improved water supply through our investments over the last 5 years. We are investing at a rate not seen since the 1980s, with public investments amounting to $22 billion and private investments in excess of $14.2 billion through public-private partnerships. The map that will shortly be displayed shows work completed in fiscal year 2024-2025, shown in green, and upcoming projects for which procurement is in progress in white. So we have covered almost all of Jamaica with a water project. Madam Speaker, we do not only announce, we deliver, and we are breaking ground and commissioning water supply systems almost weekly. Last week, I was with Minister Samuda, and we looked at several water projects in St. Elizabeth. A proper account of the extensive work undertaken in every constituency would require us to be here all night. But I can assure you that work is being done in every constituency, and the details will be provided by Minister Samuda, who is now a member of this Honourable House. Minister Samuda will also give an update on the environment and climate change. However, I would like to make mention of a few areas underwater. Very important one, the Western Parishes water supply.
You can't sit in the House and keep shouting and speaking to the member on their feet. It is the member from St. Catherine.
Madam Speaker, the severe drought which affected Western Jamaica disproportionately prompted the acceleration of major capital works to replace transmission mains in the parish of Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, and Westmoreland. This is a $28 billion three-year project which will commence in May 2025 and reduce water insecurity and non-revenue water, and involves upgrading 28 kilometers of main transmission lines from St. James to Trelawney and 37.5 kilometers from Lucy to Negril. On completion, it will benefit over 250,000 residents and business customers and catalyze development in the key tourism sector. I just want to say, Madam Speaker, that this is a game changer for water in the northwestern parishes. Madam Speaker, 6 major projects funded by the Caribbean Development Bank are being undertaken by the Rural Water Supply Limited, which will significantly improve access and transform the lives of more than 38,000 Jamaicans in rural areas of Southeast, Western St. Mary's, Southern Trelawney, Northeast St. Elizabeth, Eastern St. Thomas, and Northwest St. Anne. Currently, the Rural Water Supply Limited and the CDB are finalizing the necessary documentation for procuring design services, with the advertisement expected to be published in March 2025. Madam Speaker, I've spoken extensively about the Greater Mandeville Water Supply Project, a $2.7 billion project, which is spread over 5 years. We are midway the 5 years. And this project will reduce non-revenue water to below 50%, increase service reliability and quality, given that we are now building out new houses, new housing schemes in Mandeville and other areas. Madam Speaker, the Ray Corbry Water Plant Project, something that we have been talking about from 2009, has been discussed. We have been discussing this for years. I'm pleased to report that it is now finally in the construction phase. Construction has started. And we are targeting completion by the end of 2026. Others talk about it. We deliver it. Madam Speaker, the expansion of the sewer network in Kingston and St. Andrew is critical to the future development within the parish, both to facilitate greater densities and safeguard groundwater. This year, the NWC will be investing $1.4 billion into the laying of sewer lines along Monroe Road, Retreat Avenue, Seymour Avenue, and Old Hope Road. Additionally, there are 2 areas of deep concern which must be addressed forthwith. The first is the situation in downtown Kingston with collapsing sewer mains, and overall of the entire potable water, sewage, and drainage network is required for most of Central and West Kingston. I have directed Minister Samuda to ensure that the project design for this massive infrastructure is done this year. I have further directed that $450 million be immediately deployed to the worst affected areas within the Market District to provide immediate relief. The NWC has also commenced procurement of an additional HVAC truck to be stationed downtown to ensure that any blockages that emerge are immediately dealt with. Madam Speaker, the infrastructure is old. It is aging and collapsing. Decades of no investment. It is now showing. And it is this administration that is finding the economic wherewithal to deal with the maintenance of these critical infrastructure. Madam Speaker, I just quickly want to say that we have now started the distribution of the Black Tank program. MPs are now collecting and distributing tanks in their constituencies. We hope that that can move very quickly to mitigate any impact of drought that may occur later in the year. Madam Speaker, in November 2024, I announced that the NWC would provide an amnesty to customers cut off from the utility for more than 6 months. The amnesty has benefited pensioners, PATH recipients, and members of the disabled community with up to 100% reprieve and up to 50% for other categories of customers. As at March 14, 2025, over 21,000 customers had engaged in the process. Total reconnections so far are 3,271, with a further 5,135 awaiting reconnections. This has yielded over $207 million in revenues collected for the NWC, and that would have been uncollectible otherwise. We have also written off over $600 million of debt from those who most need it, restoring the supply of water and returning dignity to those households. Madam Speaker, this government is helping our most vulnerable. As such, I have instructed the National Water Commission to extend the program for a further 2 months. Madam Speaker, we do this because we care about the people. Madam Speaker, a strong road network is vital to a thriving economy. This government has taken bold steps to modernize roads, enhance resilience, and ensure sustainability. Madam Speaker, the Southern Coast Highway project is now 95% complete. The remaining segment from Yallas Bridge to Port Antonio and Morant Bay to Cedar Valley will reach completion in June 2025. This transformative project has delivered 141 kilometers of reconstructed roads, 248 kilometers of water pipelines, and 140 kilometers of fiber optic ducts, significantly enhancing connectivity and essential utilities. The truth is, Madam Speaker, what we have done for St. Thomas is to reverse decades of institutional neglect. St. Thomas is now set for takeoff. The launch of the $45 billion Spark program marked another pivotal achievement of our road and water supply infrastructure. For the first time, all constituencies had an opportunity to provide an input, and as I had committed, construction work began before the end of 2024, with the rehabilitation of Everest Drive in Harborview. Since then, work orders have been issued covering 126 roads across 63 constituencies. Within the next 6 weeks, we have programmed for construction to begin on another 126 roads, representing the largest single event of road construction in the history of independent Jamaica. That is 252 community roads to be completed by October this year. And Madam Speaker, the member from East Kingston and Port Royal can attest to it. He can attest to it. Road is going on in this constituency. The special CapEx program represents a strategic push to modernize our urban infrastructure, integrating road, drainage, sewage, and broadband upgrades to enhance safety, traffic management. Under this program, Grange Lane, I toured Grange Lane recently in Portmore, and it is 90% complete, with the next major project being the dualization of Brayton Road and sections of the Helsha Main Road at a cost of $2.4 billion. We are making investments in the new parish of Portmore. Other projects include the Arthur Drive extension, and we have expanded the original scope to include the stretch from Arthur Drive to Tom Redcombe and Camp Road, incorporating sewage and additional water infrastructure, ensuring greater benefits for residents, businesses, and future developments. Madam Speaker, the government will invest $2 billion to enhance key entrance corridors leading into the capital city, creating a more attractive and welcoming gateway. This initiative will focus on major thoroughfares, including the Airport Road from Norman Manley International Airport to Mountain View, from the roundabout to Port Royal. Well, you know, the member again from East Kingston and Port Royal, several years ago, came to me and he pointed out that his government had budgeted or projected to do that program. But the truth is, it didn't get done. And I have committed, Madam Speaker, that the road really deserves to be done. No political issues here. That road is the entrance to the city. And it is in a deplorable condition. So that road will be done. So that's one of the roads to be done. We will be doing as well 6 miles to Dunrobin Avenue and 6 miles to the Portia Simpson Miller Square through to downtown via Spanish Town Road. The project will begin with the pre-investment works, including design and planning, community consultations, and these upgrades will not only beautify Kingston's points of entry, but also enhance infrastructure, improve connectivity, and create a positive impression for visitors and residents alike. I want to give a quick update and just to keep our citizens who are looking out for their bypasses. So we have the bypass road projects that's still ongoing. So we will have a bypass for Port Maria, for Santa Cruz, for Lucy, for Anato Bay, for Hopewell and Sandy Bay. And the Port Antonio bypass is set to begin in the fiscal year coming, following the completion of the feasibility study. So we are going to start the Port Antonio bypass. Madam Speaker, under the accelerated bridge renewal project, we are upgrading and replacing over 55 critical bridges. Work on the Craigmill Bridge in Portland is set to begin early in the new financial year. As part of the project, a pedestrian bridge will first be built to restore foot traffic for the community, which is now cut off. The House will be happy to hear that the Troy Bridge is now approximately 50% complete. Other key projects including Spring Village Bridge in St. Catherine and Alley Bridge in Clarendon. New bridges under development include in Westmoreland, the Southwood Bridge, or Barham in Westmoreland rather, Southwood in Clarendon, and Guanabo Vale in St. Catherine. Toll roads. Madam Speaker, let me now speak on toll roads, which is a critical aspect of our improved connectivity, productivity, and efficiency. We know that long waiting times at toll plazas can cause costly delays, frustration, and impact the nation's productivity. The Angels Toll Plaza is now one of the busiest of our network. And I'm pleased to announce that 3 additional lanes will be added to the Angels Toll Plaza. We are very advanced with the engineering designs for those. A longer-term, more transformative change will be the introduction of open road tolling. This is a state-of-the-art system that allows vehicles to be charged electronically without having to stop at a toll booth. This system is widely used across the world and has proven to be faster, more efficient, and more convenient. The Montego Bay Perimeter Road will serve as the first road to have this system. Let me give a quick update on the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, which includes the Long Hill Bypass and critical upgrades to Barnett Street and West Green Avenue. For residents in the Long Hill area, you would have already noticed that clearing works have commenced. The initial concept of the Long Hill Bypass considered 2 lanes. However, the government has taken a strategic decision to expand the roadway to 4 lanes. So the people in that side of Jamaica, St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, that would rely on that very important corridor, which is now an obstacle course, when this is done, they will have a 4-lane highway. Additionally, works on the Montego Bay Bypass are progressing rapidly, with earthworks at a very advanced stage, and the Montego Bay River Bridge, which I toured recently, is 95% complete. That's the highest and longest bridge in Jamaica, an impressive piece of infrastructure. As of today, the overall project stands at 55% complete. Once finished, this network of roads will significantly ease the long-standing traffic challenges in Montego Bay and open up new areas for development, fostering greater investment and economic activities. Jamaica's North Coast, Madam Speaker, is booming. The Miami Bay area has emerged as a new urban corridor between Ocho Rios and St. Anne. It is also a critical tourism corridor. And in recent times, it has become an area for residential communities. Effectively, the corridor, which is supposed to be part of the North Coast Highway, is now serving as the main boulevard to a town, with several ingress and egress from local roads. The corridor now handles traffic coming to and from the North-South Toll Road, traffic moving between Ocho Rios and St. Anne's Bay, and local traffic moving within the various businesses and residences along the corridor. This has created a significant traffic hazard for residents and commuters, which will stifle the natural development energy in the area. This situation would be further complicated if we should proceed to widen and improve the existing roadway without having an alternative in place, as there are no other viable alternatives. We have learned our lesson from the South Coast Highway Improvement Project, which created significant dislocation to residents in St. Thomas as we fixed the road while they were using it. This dislocation and risk to residents, businesses, and the government would be far more costly in this case. Can you imagine a road obstruction that prevents a tourist bus getting to their flight on time to the Donald Sangster International Airport, or missing their cruise ship return at the Reynolds Pier, or persons can't get to their homes because of some obstruction in that one little road? And can you imagine an obstruction on just that one road, how it would impact the entire north-south traffic? So, while we are currently engaged in the North-South Highway PPP project to design and build out the upgrades, particularly the Miami Bay section of the road, the government has decided also to pursue the extension of the North-South Toll Road, which will begin with a cloverleaf interchange at Miami Bay, extending westward to Discovery Bay, that's phase 1A, and eastward to Prospect in St. Mary, phase 1B. So this, Madam Speaker, is a major infrastructure development that will allow you to go around Ocherios and to go around the Miami Bay area and Priory. And that, Madam Speaker, will increase the natural urbanization energy which exists in that corridor. Now you're going to see the expansion of businesses along that corridor, the expansion of houses in the Draxall area, but it also takes off the congestion out of Ocherios so that Ocherios can truly develop as a tourism town. So given the urgency of the development and the dislocation risks involved in upgrading this existing roadway, the government of Jamaica will take steps to designate the North-South Highway extension as a national development project. Madam Speaker, for decades, road maintenance in Jamaica has suffered from issues of fragmented responsibility among the NWA local municipal corporations and the Ministry of Agriculture, as well as inadequate preventative maintenance. For years, multiple agencies have been responsible for different aspects of road upkeep. Leading to inefficiencies, gaps in accountability, and inconsistent standards. Additionally, a lack of structured preventative maintenance has resulted in roads deteriorating faster than they should, increasing the burden of costly emergency repairs. This reactive approach is neither sustainable nor cost-effective. We are therefore undertaking a strategic review of road maintenance with a focus on institutional governance arrangements to give consideration to the possible establishment of a single road authority to streamline governance and oversight. With this in place, we can have clear lines of enforcement against persons who destroy our roads. It is particularly disturbing to see concrete spilled on our roads and no accountability for clearing and restoration. I want to express my gratitude to the World Bank and the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office for providing technical assistance with the review, including information on approaches and models for road maintenance that have been successful in other countries. We are also integrating geospatial technologies and AI-driven solutions to improve planning and efficiency. We have significantly mapped and referenced over 90% of all roads in Jamaica. This information will help us to create an intelligence register of all our roads, to use it in spatial planning, and importantly, to develop a fiscal preventative maintenance plan which aligns to the engineered lifespan of the road. This also lays the basis for smarter and connected infrastructure to address traffic, public safety, civil defense, security, and logistics. To this end, I have given directions to the NWA and the Spatial Data Management Branch to begin work on developing a uniformed address system and zip code for Jamaica, including the use of digital addresses. So finally, Jamaica will have a standardized system of road naming, of one spelling of the road. You know, Madam Speaker, when you look at the vote, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the voters list and you are trying to order and sort the voters list, and you see 10 different spelling of the roads, 10 different ways of writing addresses. In a modern country, that shouldn't be the case. We need to have one uniform system of address. And I've given the directives for us to start on this path. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, after decades of underinvestment, we are shifting to a structured, sustainable, tech-based system of road maintenance, and this approach will extend the road lifespan, reduce frequent repairs, and improve safety. This government is not just rebuilding roads, we are building a smarter, more resilient future for Jamaica. Madam Speaker, approximately 20% of Jamaicans live in informal settlements, but in urban areas, the situation is even more dire. 60% of the urban population reside in unplanned, substandard housing, which is higher than the average in other Latin American and Caribbean countries. Madam Speaker, we are committed to transforming informal settlements into secure, legally recognized communities that foster stability, economic development, and a better quality of life for all Jamaicans. Madam Speaker, in 2007, the Jamaica Labour Party government restructured the failed Operation Pride into the Housing Agency of Jamaica, making it the leading force in tenure regularization. The HAJ continues to prioritize security of tenure for low and middle-income earners, delivering approximately 1,000 homes across projects such as St. Paul's Lane in Kingston in my constituency, St. Catherine Estates in St. Catherine, Sandown Palms in St. Catherine, and Edmond Ridge in St. James. Additionally, the HAJ has been tasked with the upgrading of 81 informal communities, with work set to begin in Eden Park, St. Mary. To expand home ownership, the HAJ plans to implement 10,000 housing starts and 4,000 completed solutions over the next 4 years. The HAJ will also be intervening in 5 small, informal urban communities, that is, communities 5 acres or less, to upgrade their housing and infrastructure, replicating the success of the St. Paul's Lane model. We have identified communities in Almond Town, Anato Bay, Parade Gardens, Long Acres in Montego Bay, and Russia in Savnamar as communities to benefit from this intervention. Penwood Road has a particular challenge, which I've asked the HAJ to investigate. There is the land is lower than the road, and so there's a flooding issue, and so they have to figure out how to solve that. Madam Speaker, through systematic land titling and registration, the National Land Agency is set to deliver 12,000 titles. 12,000 titles ending this year, and they are targeting an additional 8,000 additional titles in 2025-2026. The NLA, Mr. Speaker, is well advanced in deploying a system of electronic titles. So this will transform the whole issuing of titles and the speed of issuing of titles in Jamaica. In fact, they are expecting to start by 2027, 2028. We are now ready to use systematic titling to regularize parcels in urban areas, starting with a pilot in Kingston and St. Andrew. And to support this expansion, we are increasing the number of commissioned land surveyors through an apprenticeship program at the NLA, with plans to train 33 student surveyors and equip them with modern surveying instruments. Additionally, a geospatial training center developed in partnership with the Government of Korea will enhance land survey capabilities using advanced unmanned drones to expedite cadastral mapping and land registration. Mr. Speaker, a substantial number of communities across Jamaica have shared facilities, which necessitate shared management of expenses. There is an increasing effective demand for these types of developments as Jamaica has steadily moved towards a stable and prosperous economy. Unfortunately, as experience has shown, with Strata properties. These communities are plagued by numerous challenges that can only be adequately addressed by new legislation. The government has heeded the numerous cries for help, and Madam Speaker, as promised in my 2024 budget presentation, the long-awaited registration shared community bill was tabled in the House of Parliament on March 18, 2025. Commitment made, commitment kept. This act, when passed, will provide a clear legal framework to govern all new and existing communities where their proprietors own common real estate or any other facilities and amenities. Madam Speaker, I encourage property owners to review the legislation and provide any feedback where necessary to ensure it adequately addresses your needs. Mr. Speaker, beyond the regularization of existing settlements, we are also building entirely new planned settlements to provide high-quality, affordable housing for Jamaicans. The Bernard Lodge project was the first of this large-scale master plan development and represents a new era in sustainable and structured community development in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I toured the Bernard Lodge project recently, and it looked as if it could have been anywhere in Miami. Yes. It is a whole different world over there. By integrating green spaces, essential services, and economic opportunities, Bernard Lodge will offer a high quality of life for its residents while serving as a model for future planned developments across Jamaica of this nature. That's in the new parish of Port. So, Madam Speaker, already to date, 6,000 units have been completed or are under construction. And they are moving at a rapid pace. When it is all finished, there will be about 15,000 homes. It will be the most modern community in Jamaica. And we have the pleasure of being the founders of that community. Madam Speaker, the next planned development of this kind will be in Innswood. I have given directives to the NHT to lead a multi-agency team to undertake the master planning for lands at Innswood, in addition to lands slated for development along the St. John's Road corridor. And let me say, Madam Speaker, the St. John's Road corridor is another corridor of significant traffic congestion, particularly on a weekend, because there are two large cemeteries in that area, but there are also large communities in that area. In fact, there is a community called Naysbury Grove, a community that was founded under the Operation Pride scheme, where the people were given lands. You know, it is really sad when you go there. There is no infrastructure. There is no real titling, no roads. The people have just been left there. If the objective of Pride was to give people land and give them dignity, it failed miserably. So what we're going to do, Madam Speaker, is when we do the master planning for Innswood, we're going to extend the master plan to take into consideration the St. John's Road corridor and all the lands around there, because, Madam Speaker, there is significant private sector interest in developing the land, but they have problems getting approvals because there's so much uncertainty. There is a major drainage problem in the area. And so what we're going to do, Madam Speaker, is to do a comprehensive development plan. And therefore, we will call the area the Greater Innswood Development Area. So that, Madam Speaker, will be the next Bernard Lodge. It will take about a year and a half to do the master planning, to secure approvals, the general approvals, to mobilize resources, to treat with the necessary drainage, to deal with the roadway, and then to where we have lands to go through a process of divestment, and then to deal with common infrastructure. And, Madam Speaker, I am certain that we will be creating the second most modern community in Jamaica, in Innswood. Madam Speaker, the NHT has 12 projects that we will be executing this year, and they are at varying stages. Mount Nelson in Manchester, 1,758 units, for which I broke ground earlier this month. Galena in St. Mary, 360. Dry Valley in Trelawney, 1,560. Brampton Farm, St. Catherine, 2,000. Spot Valley, St. James, 418. Carlsberg in Clarendon, 200. Chantilly in Westmoreland, 135. Friendship Oaks, Phase 2, St. Elizabeth, 543. Longville Park Pen in Clarendon, 2,077. Barrett Hall in St. James, 1,565. Roselle in St. Thomas, pay attention to that one, 660. And Nonsuch, St. Mary, 46. Planning and designs are also underway for schemes consisting of 10,598 solutions, including 5,000 solutions in Longville Park, in Longville 4, Clarendon. Madam Speaker, the NHT will commence construction on more than 19,575 solutions across all parishes over the next 2 years and continues to acquire land for new development. Madam Speaker, one of the challenges that developers face is that advances provided by the NHT are insufficient to cover large initial capital outlays required, as infrastructure can account for some 20 to 25% of overall project costs. Therefore, the NHT is revising its NHT financing program to enhance flexibility in the release of payment advances. In addition to the current mobilization advance of up to 5%, the NHT will provide an additional 20% for developers and 15% for the guaranteed purchase program to reimburse developers at different stages of the project as key infrastructure milestones are reached. Madam Speaker, this is necessary to increase funding for development. Additionally, Madam Speaker, in order to address the difficulty of identifying and accessing large tracts of land for housing in some areas, especially urban and semi-urban areas, the NHT will seek to partner with owners of small parcels of land under the Small Development Partnership Program. This initiative will see the NHT providing project funding and the technical and construction expertise, while the landowner will offer their property as their equity for the development. The proposed properties must be zoned for residential purposes and have access to the requisite support infrastructure, potable water, electricity, sewage. This is targeted at houses for low-income and affordable segments of the housing market Therefore, the selling price of the units must be under the price point set by the NHD. Madam Speaker, this initiative is going to be a game changer for resuscitating communities that are suffering from urban blight. So what this is doing is, Madam Speaker, so if you have a community where somebody has a half acre, a 3/4 acre of land, it's depressed, they can approach the NHD and say, partner with me to develop this into smaller housing solutions at more affordable prices. And if we get this done in mass, communities like Central Kingston, Grants Pen, West Kingston, you name it, communities that are already structured, they have roadways, the water mains are already there, in some cases sewer is already there. Then what you would see is developers, well, they may not be developers now, but people who own land in those communities who would not be able to go and approach a bank because the bank would say, this is not a bankable property. But now they could approach the NHD, and the NHD would facilitate the development, even purchase the homes from them, and then resell them. Now, once you start to get that in mass, you can start to transform entire areas, but with a lower infrastructure cost, because the roads are already there. They just need to be patched. The water main is already there. So that is the thinking behind this strategy. And I'm certain that this is going to instigate a transformation of some of the communities. Madam Speaker, there are so many initiatives that I'm afraid I will have to skip through a few of them, but let me So currently, the NHD provides 100% mortgage financing to mortgagors for its scheme solutions for housing units and house lots purchased by the NHD contributors on the open market. The NHD provides a maximum of 95% financing, requiring prospective mortgagors to finance the deposit of 5%. The inability to find the deposit for property figures prominently among the impediments to homeowners. Therefore, commencing July 1, 2025, for contributors who earn less than $30,000 weekly, the deposit requirement on open loan markets, on open market loans will be reduced to 2% if the housing solution being acquired is priced at or below $14 million. Starting July 1, 2025, the service charge on mortgages will be reduced as follows. For prospective mortgagors who earn $30,000 or less each week, their service charge will be reduced from 2% to a loan, will be reduced from 2% of the loan amount to 0. Yeah, so if you earn $30,000 or less, no interest. no service charge. And for prospective mortgagors earning between $30,000 and $42,000 per week, the service charge will be reduced from 5% of the loan to 2%. Prospective mortgagors earning $42,100 per week or $42,001 per week and above, their service charge remain at 5%. Madam Speaker, currently a minimum wage earner who has contributed to the NHD for at least 7 years may access a home grant of up to $3.5 million. We are modifying the eligibility requirement in order to make the grant available to more contributors. The maximum qualifying income for home grants will now be $30,000 per week. The NHD is mindful that house construction can be challenging, particularly in light of the rising cost of labor and materials. Consequently, a number of contributors have been unable to complete their housing units or bring it to a habitable stage, resulting in some instances in contributors having to balance their limited resources between rent and servicing construction loans. In instances where a current or retired contributor earning $30,000 per week or less accessed a build-and-own land or construction loan benefit to construct a housing unit comprising 2 bedrooms or less, for which that unit has remained incomplete for 2 years or more due to unavailability of funds, the NHD will firstly offer the mortgager an additional loan of up to the difference between the balance of the borrower's current loan and a limit of $11 million subject to affordability. Secondly, where this additional fund is not able to bring the unit to a habitable stage, or in the case of a pensioner, there is insufficient income to support a loan arrangement, the NHD may provide a home grant of up to $3.5 million to assist in bringing the unit to completion. Now, Madam Speaker, a number of contributors who work in the public health system face challenges in finding suitable housing, especially when they are not from a nearby community or where they have been transferred from another health facility. The NHD will expand its institutional loan program and pursue partnerships with hospitals through the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the regional health authorities to provide housing for employees in the public health system. Where possible, these housing units will be constructed on the hospital compound. The NHD, yes. The NHD has begun preliminary discussions with the University Hospital of the West Indies and one rural hospital under this program. So we're going to see some houses, Minister Tufton, finally built for our doctors and nurses. Madam Speaker, currently, all contributors who do not have a mortgage processed directly with the NHD are eligible for a cash refund of their contributions as they fall due. Public sector workers are, however, able to access cash refunds even while servicing a mortgage. This option is not currently available to private sector mortgagors. Effective July 1, 2025, private sector mortgagors will have the option of either a cash refund or the application of their refund amounts to their existing mortgage obligations, provided that the loan is free of arrears. Madam Speaker, this will be assessed on a year-by-year basis based upon the NHD's cash flow position. But this is big. This is big. A lot of people, look forward to their refund. Now they will be able to, the private sector persons who have mortgages will have the same options as the public sector workers. Effective July 1, 2025, the NHD will reduce the waiting time for accessing home improvement loans from 10 years to 7 years. So, yeah. So before, you would have to wait 10 years before you could get another home improvement loan. Now we have cut that, and we have increased the loan limit to 5 million from 3.5 million. Madam Speaker, the NHD increased the loan limit in 2019 and again in 2023, and I'm pleased to announce a further increase effective July 1, 2025. The individual loan limit will be increased from 7.5 million to $9 million. For 2 co-applicants, the combined maximum loan limit will be increased from $15 million to $17 million. And for 3 co-applicants, it will be increased from $21 million to $23 million. Madam Speaker, if an individual mortgager is purchasing a unit at 14 million or less, the NHD will lend that individual up to $12 million subject to availability. Let me explain that a little bit. Each time we increase, we notice, Madam Speaker, that each time we increase the loan limit, we notice an increase in the price of houses. It is the most frustrating thing. And yes, it is a matter of economics. When you increase effective demand, then more people are chasing houses than there are houses in the market. The competitive system is going to increase the price. So what we have done is to give a greater loan limit for houses that are going to be at what we call affordable price point. And the affordable price point for the NHD is $14 million. In fact, Madam Speaker, we have given a policy directive to the NHD that all their resources should now be directed at producing houses that are around this price point. The NHD will not get involved in any new development of houses above this price point. So, very important, Madam Speaker. Now, you won't always get the houses at exactly 14 million, but you have to be within that target range. Because the truth is, Madam Speaker, that the real housing crisis is in the low income and affordable housing market. And that's where we have to direct. So, for construction of houses just to be clear, Madam Speaker, if an individual mortgager is purchasing a unit priced at 14 million or less, the NHD will lend that individual up to $12 million. Now, also for construction of houses by individual contributors, the individual construction loan limit will be increased to $11 million. For 2 co-applicants, it will be $17 million, and for 3, $23 million. Madam Speaker, in 2025-2026 fiscal year, the National Housing Trust will celebrate 50 years of service to the people of Jamaica. Recognizing the profound impact of Emancipation Park and Harmony Park in providing a space for recreation, wellness, and community engagement, the NHT will commemorate